What's up, y'all? I wanted to come on and make this quick video because this past weekend, as you can tell by the title, was Resurrection Sunday weekend, and I went to church for the first time in about a year because of all the COVID stuff that was going on. And I went to my church and I got nothing out of the service, like absolutely nothing. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. And I wanted to share this video because I feel like many of you watching this are probably having the same experience on a regular basis, right? You know that you should go to church, but whenever you go, you're like, I didn't really get anything out of that. Like that didn't really, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it, or for whatever reason. And if we're not careful, we could get into this habit of blaming our church because, hey, our church didn't give me what I needed and I didn't get anything out of the service. Well, I just want to share with you about 7 things that I was carrying into the service yesterday that I believe was hindering me from getting something out of the service. And I think it's some of these same things that might be hindering you whenever you go to church and you leave and you're like, okay, that was a waste of time. Therefore, I don't even feel like wanting to go. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this idea of fatigue. All right. I'm not going to lie to you. When I went to church Saturday night, because the church I go to has Saturday night service, right? So when I went on Saturday night, I was literally worn out. I don't want to go into too much detail, but my wife ruptured her Achilles tendon about a week ago. And so I've been on extreme child duty, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, taking care of my wife, trying to do everything in the house, cooking, cleaning, putting the kids to sleep. And honestly, it took every bit of my energy just to get to the church. And by the time I got there, I was so exhausted. I was so tired that I really wasn't able to really give much during the service because I was just super fatigued, right? So that is maybe one reason why whenever we go to church, we're just like, man, I'm not getting anything out of it. The next thing that I carried into the church that really, I think, hindered me from getting things out of the church was I was just distracted, right? I was totally distracted. When I got there, for whatever reason, I was taking pictures with my phone, trying to post those on Instagram instead of being focused on worship. I was, people were texting me. I was texting some of my friends, hey, I'm in church or whatever. My wife was texting me. She needed some things. And as a result, I just wasn't able to focus on the sermon. I wasn't able to focus on worship. Here I am in worship trying to take pictures of the worship going on so I could post it on Instagram. Stupid stuff like that, right? Like I was just totally distracted during the service. And I think that many times we blame our church because like, hey, I'm not getting anything out of this, when in reality, we are just too distracted. The third thing that I carried into the church service, which caused me to come to the conclusion that I got absolutely nothing out of this service, and many of you probably having the same experience, is I was just disconnected from God on that particular day. What I mean is that day, yesterday, Saturday, right? I don't remember praying, if I'm just being honest with you. I started reading my daily Bible in the morning, but I got distracted. So I only got like 5 minutes in. And so therefore, I didn't really spend time with God in prayer. I didn't do any worship. I didn't do any Bible study. And as a result, mentally, spiritually, I just wasn't in a spiritual place to actually receive from the Lord, right? And so I think many times we go to church, we want to be entertained, and we're going in there, we're carrying all this stuff. We're carrying heaviness, we're carrying fatigue, we're carrying disconnection from God, we're carrying distractions and all these things. And we haven't spent any time practicing the presence of God. It's like we're going into church, a hot environment, and we're going in cold. And we expect the worship team and the pastor and everything that's going on to somehow get some switch to flip the switch, right? And it doesn't work like that oftentimes. If you and I haven't been practicing the presence of God on a consistent basis, you can't just expect to go to church and then church is going to flip the switch and you're just going to have this miraculous experience with God. The fourth thing that I carried into the service that I didn't even realize that I carried in, and many of you may be carrying this, is a lack of anticipation or expectation. In other words, I'm not going to lie to you, y'all. I went to church yesterday and I wasn't expecting to get anything from God. I wasn't expecting or anticipating a move from God. I was just kind of like, okay, it's time for church. It's Resurrection Sunday. This is a good time for me to make my entrance back into church. I haven't been in about a year. I need to give my wife some time alone, so I'll take the kids out of the house and all this stuff, right? And I wasn't anticipating that God was going to meet me there. I wasn't anticipating that I was going to get a word for my life. And so as a result, I literally clipped my wings before I flew, so to speak, right? I was going into church without even an anticipation or expectation that a holy God wanted to meet me there and wanted me to have an experience, a divine encounter, an experience with him. I didn't even anticipate, didn't even think about it, right? I just figured this is going to be church as normal. We're going to sing some songs. We're going to hear a sermon and we're going to go home. And I think having that type of mentality limits us from getting something out of our church experience. Number 5 is a really quick one, and that is just tardiness. All right, at the end, look, whenever you're rushing to get to church and you got to drop the kids off at the children's ministry and you're rushing through traffic, you're stressed, right? You're overwhelmed. You're not in the right mental space at that point to even be able to get into church early, prepare your heart, listen to the worship, like really get your mind ready because you're so stressed and you're just running late for church. And as a result, you're not ready to even get yourself there. So that's another thing. Number 6 is relational conflict. Look, I'm just going to let you all in on a little backstory of what was going on, right? Right before church, like I said, my wife was in bed. She ruptured her Achilles, so she couldn't do anything. And I was trying to get the kids ready. I didn't quite know what clothes they should wear and how my wife wanted them to dress. Because, my wife wants the kids to dress a certain way, particularly with it being Resurrection Sunday. And so essentially, we had a fuss. We didn't fight, but we were fussing at each other back and forth because I'm like, hey, let's just put them in something. I'm running late. I don't like to be late for church. I want to get to church. And she was like, no, this doesn't work. We'll go to this room and go find their clothes. I went to that room. The clothes weren't in that room. And then, I went to the other room and found the clothes, but then the clothes that I put on her, it wasn't quite right, and on and on. And I started getting frustrated because I'm like looking at my clock and I'm like, okay, we're going to be late for church. And there was this relational conflict that was going on with my wife, with me and my wife, right? So once again, whenever you carry that into the service, you're not in the right emotional space and frame of mind to even want to be in church because your mind and your soul is kind of back home or in the car where you all had an argument or whatever, right? So that's another thing. And then the last thing that I will say as it relates to what I brought into church was the wrong perspective. And what I mean there is, I think we're guilty of going into church and we're always thinking about what I'm going to get out of this, right? Rather than what I can give. We have more of a consumer mentality rather than a contributor mentality. And essentially, it's like I'm going into church and I'm expecting to get something from God, right? I want to get this feeling. I want to get my breakthrough. I want to get a word. I want to get a warm and fuzzy feeling during worship. Like I want to get this instead of the mentality of what can I give? What can I give back to God? Maybe me going to church is not so much about what I can get from God, but my perspective needs to shift and say, okay, Lord, this is my time to give you everything back because maybe during the week I didn't spend time with you the way I wanted to. So now is my opportunity to give back to you in prayer, to give back to you in worship, to give back to you in my finances, in every way of my life. So I just want to share those things. I know this isn't the normal day that I come out with my video, but I was feeling this and I was like, you know what? I know I'm not the only person in the world who, when I go to church, sometimes I leave and I'm not feeling it. And the reality is it may or may not always be your church's fault. It very well may be that you might be carrying one of these or many of these 7 things that I just talked about in this video into your church, and you don't even realize that you're bringing it in there. And as a result, it's really hindering you and I from having a divine experience with the Lord. So I would love to know your thoughts. Is there anything that I may have left off on this list? Is there anything that you want to add? What has been your church experience? Let me know in the comment section below and let's talk about it. If you found this video helpful in any way, feel free to share it with a friend. Also, if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you would subscribe. Check out some of the other videos on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on The Beat.